Well, thank you, Dane. Thank you for the leadership of the Kauffman Foundation on all the critical questions around entrepreneurship and job growth and job creation in the United States. And thank you, Professor. I'm going to give you a minute to take a deep breath, a sip of water, and then you'll be right back up to answer questions. I want to thank all of you for taking time today to be here. I don't know about you, your offices, your members, but what I hear from Delawareans all the time is that they want us working across the aisle to find real solutions to job growth, to how do we make sure that the jobs that are growing in the United States are high quality and sustainable, that the small business sector that everyone sort of thinks is an important hotbed of potential and growth is actually more vibrant, and that we are finding real solutions to what is a complicated thicket of policy questions around competitiveness. So thank you for investing your time and your interest. And thank you, Professor, for laying out some really intriguing and challenging statistical dynamics within the small business, within the high growth and startup sector that I think should tantalize and engage all of us. You heard from my partner, Senator Moran, earlier. As someone who's been to the headquarters of the Kauffman Foundation many years ago, I'm not from Kansas, but as a Truman Scholar, I used to visit it regularly. The Council on Competitiveness did remarkable work in Delaware when I was in the private sector. I spent 8 years working at a business that was literally started in a basement, was a manufacturing company of exactly the type that you're describing, where an individual took an enormous amount of risk, stepped out of a stable and well-settled job and career, borrowed every dime he could get, and for 2 years didn't make a cent even though he had 5 kids, and ultimately has ended up growing a company that employs more than 10,000 people in 45 countries today, the Gore-Tex company. Another best friend of mine is someone who started a business in his bathtub, literally, playing around with slurries and pads and polishing, and he ended up being the world leader in the production of semiconductor chip polishing materials, who I was just talking to this week. Senator Moran and I share an enthusiasm, a passion for not just these stories, early stage startups and the challenges they overcome, but for working together to try and address the issues that we could address here at the federal level that are slowing their growth and that may be in some ways the solution to the tantalizing challenges that the professor just raised. So let me briefly mention 3 that he and I have been working on together: the Startup Innovation Credit, which is actually something that Senator Roberts and I are co-sponsors of, that makes the R&D tax credit accessible to early stage startups that typically can't access it because they're pre-profitability. It allows an offset against the AMC. And we believe it is likely to be added to tax extenders at the end of the year. It's already come out of the Finance Committee and is a piece of the extender package. Manufacturing universities, a bill I have with Senator Ayotte of New Hampshire, to try and strengthen the engagement between universities and the manufacturing sector, which is one where there are a significant number of early stage and startup companies that often struggle to access the high-skilled, highly effective intervention of recent university graduates who often aren't as trained as they should be in cutting-edge advanced manufacturing skills. And in some ways, most importantly, the Startup Act, where Senator Moran and I have been co-sponsors since we first introduced it 4 years ago, and I hope he described it in some detail, and if not, I recommend it to you. The Competitiveness Caucus is going to tackle questions across a wide range of issues that deal with manufacturing, but also tax and trade and immigration and intellectual property and infrastructure, and tries to look at this as a system that needs us to understand it and needs us to come together and find real solutions to it. So I hope if you're a member, if your office is not already participating, that you will think about doing so. This is not meant to be a letterhead caucus. This is meant to be a caucus that actually convenes events like this, that works in partnership with real leaders in this area, not just the thought leaders, but also the foundations and the organizations that help sustain them. And it's my real hope that out of this, we will begin to solve the puzzle of how we can strengthen and energize the startup community and how we can continue to contribute to a country that has the greatest record of entrepreneurship anywhere in the world. My small footnote, we want all those startups to incorporate in Delaware. Delaware is the default state for incorporation for virtually every startup in the country and in many cases the world. There's good reason for that. I'd be happy to debate that with anybody, anytime, anywhere. We do have an iPhone app that allows you to incorporate in Delaware in 15 minutes or less for $49.95 and have your first board meeting before an hour from now. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. And we'd be happy to bring our Secretary of State anywhere in the country to argue about why we are the right place for the entity formation part. It's a much broader question, how we make sure that the federal government is both out of the way of and enthusiastically in support of the entrepreneurs who are taking the risks that will actually generate the high growth, high potential companies of the future. And I'm excited to have a chance to work on that with Senator Moran and a number of other great partners. So if you don't know, Eric Wall in my office is in the back. If you don't know if your office is a participant in the Competitiveness Caucus, please ask him. There are a number of folks who've joined, but many more who should and who I would welcome a chance to work with. So if you'll forgive me, I have to get back for another speech I'm giving. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you, Dana. Thanks for the opportunity to interrupt and contribute.